Hi, I'm James McGuire, and today we're talking about the big changes, the big challenges in today's enterprise data management. To discuss that, I'm joined by Radhika Krishnan, Chief Product Officer for Hitachi Vantara. Radhika, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you, James. It's a pleasure to be on your show.
So I think that companies face a real challenge with data today, all sorts of challenges. I mean, they have got silos, they've got fragmented data, they've got an enormous amount of data. I think sometimes they have more data than they know what to do with. I mean, how do you define the data problem and why does it need to be solved?
Yeah, great question, James. And when you think about the magnitude of this problem, it's actually staggering. The total amount of data that's getting collected, according to analyst sources, was in the order of 4.4 zettabytes in 2015. And by the way, for reference, a zettabyte is a trillion gigabytes.
Right.
And in 2020, that's grown tenfold to 44 zettabytes.
Wow.
And the projection is that that is actually going to grow to 80 and 100 and beyond, right? So huge gobs of data.
Right.
And these data are very disparate in nature as well, right? Different data types, different formats. They come as flat files, document stores, event logs, databases, there are file systems. And then there are these IoT sensors that are constantly streaming in data.
Right.
Matter of fact, this rapidly streaming data from IoT is supposed to grow exponentially as we go into the out years. Now, to compound things even further, the location of this data is all over the map, right? So where previously all of this used to reside within a data center, now we're talking about the edge, we're talking about the core, the cloud, and so on. And so the disparate nature of these locations of these data as well compounds the issue.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that tells me that, the one type of business that will never go out of business is the data storage and data analytics companies. We need them probably more than ever at this point.
Absolutely, absolutely. That is spot on, and therein, therein is the opportunity as well.
Let's talk about the idea of a data fabric and why it's relevant. I mean, when I think about a data fabric, I think it's like an architecture, a set of data services that provide consistent capabilities across the enterprise. It feels like it's a newer idea. I mean, what is your sense of why the data fabric is so important these days?
So the data fabric isn't like a singular technology, James. You can think of the data fabric as essentially an integrated fabric of data and connecting processes, right? It's not a single tool. It doesn't perform a singular function. Essentially, what it is a mechanism whereby you can integrate and collect data from multiple sources. You can organize it, you can analyze it, and essentially present the insights that customers are craving for, right? And the data itself, as it comes in, as we talked about earlier, can be in different formats. They can be coming from different sources and locations and so on. And then you have to now get it organized based on this construct of a metadata, and the metadata itself can be passive or active. You have to cleanse the data because data quality is very critical as well. You've curated, established lineage in certain instances, organize it, and that then allows you to publish it. So whether that is in the pursuit of a particular analytics applications, or you just want to visualize the data or what have you, that is kind of the end product. So that's essentially what a data fabric does, right? And the use cases are manifold. The data fabric can cater to, like I said, establishing better data quality. It could be around, things like data governance and putting in place data policies. The universe that we live in, there is so much regulation that, there are aspects around PII, personal information data, around GDPR, around CCPA, and so on, which this data fabric allows you to enforce.
It's really interesting. I think so obviously the data fabric might be more than comprised of the products of more than one vendor, perhaps in some instances.
It could be data fabrics by definition. The more robust ones are composable in nature. And so what that means is, you're actually not hard coding. So the pipelines of data that are coming in from disparate sources aren't hard coded per se, right? There is that element of composability which comes in, which also implies that you are able to use and interject third-party tools as required.
Interesting. Okay. And I know that Hitachi Vantara has had some, product releases recently around Lumada and the Lumada Data App Suite. Can you give us the update on that?
Yeah, we're very proud of the data platform, data fabric offering that we brought to market recently, James. And so think of it as essentially automating data management from the edge to the core to the cloud. Essentially, what the data platform, the Lumada Data Ops Suite does is it takes information from IT and OT sources, and it is able to go through and do all of the data ingestion, the data integration, the data prepping, the cleansing, etc., that we talked about, so as to deliver, intelligence to customers, right? And that could be in the form of, it could be an OT customer that is looking to improve their supply chain operations or their inventory management, the efficiency of their shop floor, their OEE, any number of things. Or it could be like a bank in a regulated industry that is looking to maybe implement better data quality, data governance, could be something around PII, as we talked about, the zoning of data, anomaly detection, fraud detection, and so on and so forth. So that's essentially what the Lumada Data Ops Suite enables. And it is actually composable and it's modular. Back to your earlier question, it is backed by a microservices-based architecture. And so what that allows you to do is, gives you that composability, as well as it also allows the offering to operate both on-prem as well as in the cloud, right? And so when you think about the fact that data lakes today reside everywhere, right? There are multiple data lakes, and they could be on-prem, they could be in various hyperscaler clouds. This tool actually gives you the ability to assemble all those pipelines, consolidate, and provide that singular fabric.
Well, I'm assuming that artificial intelligence and machine learning play a definite role. But how does AI and ML fit into this?
So a good bit of how we're driving automation in our data platform comes down to AI and ML, James. And I will actually, set the context for this using two customer examples, because I think it kind of brings it home. And then I'll get a little bit deeper into how AI really helps increase and enhance that automation that I just alluded to. So the first example that I'm going to share is one of an investment bank. And they had multiple of these data lakes and multiple cross BU data silos, right? This is a classic problem with a lot of our customers, especially the larger ones, where they have multiple data lakes, multiple data sources. They can derive better insights if they're able to consolidate and glean the insights from that entire collection of data. However, just owing to the way that the tools are organized, it becomes very challenging, right? And so this particular customer had multiple issues that they were confronted with. One was, the data access was just very slow, right? And really expensive and clunky pipelines. And one of the things that the customer was being forced into doing was really custom coding these pipelines, right? Which, as you can imagine, that is not great for consistency. It's not great for policy enforcement. And so that was the big challenge this customer was encountering. And so what they were able to derive with the Lumada Data Ops Suite was essentially no more custom coding, which gave them a ton of consistency and much faster deployment, right? So they were able to take 3 data centers and 10 plus lines of business and consolidate it down and just get that faster speed of operation. So that's one example. The second example that I'm going to talk about is a top retail bank here in the US that had significant PII risk, right? And their particular challenge was, they had actually, ventured into the use of catalogs, which is the way that you profile data. And matter of fact, it wasn't just one catalog. They were using 3 different catalogs from 3 different vendors, one of them actually homegrown. And even so, because of the static nature of what they were doing, a very, very small percentage of the data was getting tagged. And not only was it, exacerbating the PII issue, they also had challenges with duplicate data sitting in the system that they had to rationalize and reconcile and so on. And so with the Lumada Data Ops, what we do, going back to your original question about AI and ML, is we actually use AI techniques to tag the data, right? And keeping in mind that the data inflow tends to be very dynamic in nature,
Right.
it is critical to not have static schemas, and the AI-enabled tagging that we're able to bring forth actually gives you multiple advantages, right? One is it truly makes it dynamic in nature. Second, it allows you to do things such as semantic enrichment of the metadata.
Uh-huh.
And thirdly, it actually truly allows for this dynamic tagging of data, which you need in a universe where data is just very chaotic and coming in from all directions.
Right.
And so, in this particular instance, just because of that AI-enabled meta tagging, James, the customer was able to accelerate their ability to glean insights by about 300%, right? So
Uh-huh.
imagine that
Okay.
they not only were they able to get that faster turnaround, their PII issues were resolved as well. That duplicate data problem that I alluded to earlier was
Right.
also reconciled, right? They were able to rationalize through it, so they were storing lesser amounts of data of a higher quality.
Huh. Interesting. All right. Well, on a similar piece of company news, I know that Hitachi Vantara recently acquired IOTA. So what was the purpose of that, and how does that fit into the larger plan moving forward?
Yeah, we're very excited about the addition of IOTA to our portfolio, James. And so, if you think back to our genesis, we over time acquired some very strong technology. Whether it be from Pentaho early on, or
Mhm.
more recently, the acquisition of Waterline data. What we've done is, through a combination of these acquisitions and in-house building, we have been able to deliver on this vision of a data platform.
Mhm.
Now, where we really want to go is to be able to build out a robust collection of data services toward the pursuit of more of these tip of the spear applications that customers are craving for, right? The real value comes from being able to solve a bank's challenges with fraud detection or anomaly detection,
Right.
or any number of governance that they're having to enforce. Similarly, on the OT side, a lot of it comes down to how you can deliver materially improved TCO, or materially improved performance, or operational capacity and things of that nature.
Right.
And that comes about by building more of those tip of the spear applications, right? And so what IOTA gives us is a very significant ability to accelerate our data services portfolio significantly. And
Right.
so they bring to bear some very, very strong capabilities in the area of data quality, data governance, workflow approvals, the ability to publish data, and they have some very, very cool capabilities as well in the data visualization space. And so now we're the beneficiaries of all these capabilities, and now we're able to integrate it much more quickly. The other very interesting point I will highlight as well is IOTA, when they were architected, were also architected as a microservices-based offering. And
Ah.
therefore, the integration of these two solutions has been a whole lot easier than it would have been if these were two monolithic pieces of software that you had to pull together. And
Right.
so all of this gives us the ability to build that full-fledged offering and bring to market, solutions that really cater to that tip of the spear problems that customers are experiencing.
Interesting. I mean, certainly the microservices piece there really is interesting in that it seems like it's such a rising trend. I'd like to get your sense looking forward of how you see storage and analytics, joining. It seems like in the old days, companies simply stored their data, and now, of course, they need to work much harder to mine value from that data. I mean, how do you see the idea of storage and analytics joining in the years ahead?
So James, the way we come at it, we think there are two angles here that are going to really result in explosively enhanced value to our customers, right? So the
Okay.
first of these is really this term that gets talked about a lot lately, which is this notion of AI ops, right? It's
Right.
essentially leveraging artificial intelligence to automate IT operations, right? And so as you know, we have a very, very strong heritage in data storage, which, when you combine that with some of the capabilities that the Lumada data fabric brings to the fore, we're now actually able to take advantage of the analytics capabilities, the AI ML sets of competencies that we have in order to drive that automation. When we talk to our infrastructure customers, they talk about the need to make infrastructure invisible, right? And what that really means is, the ability to automate it, to make it more self-driving, self-healing, all of that, which, through a robust telemetry system, where you're collecting data in real time, and a combination of data analytics, powered by AI and ML, you can actually get to the point where you really truly can deliver on that vision of self-driving infrastructure, right? So that is something we're pretty heavily leaning into, and is something that we believe we're going to be able to do very effectively given our competencies on both ends of that spectrum. The other thing I will say as well, so that's one angle. The other angle we're actively looking at as well, James, is, we talked about the need to not just store data, but also to be able to rationalize what you're storing, right? And so, until very recently, data storage has been all about just storing data and doing it well, and with data reduction techniques and so on. But where we're moving into in this next realm is really this notion of data intelligence, or this awareness of content, right? Where we're able to take the data and we're able to optimize it better. We're able to apply policies to it, governance, as well as, things such as tiering data, right? Oftentimes we talk to customers who tell us that they would like to be able to tier their data more effectively and siphon maybe the data that can go into cold storage, or more inexpensive storage medium, and so having this ability to understand what's being stored, we believe will also be a significant trend moving forward, right? And so that is really this combination of analytics, what Lumada brings to the table, alongside what we've been able to deliver on the data storage spectrum.
Great. It's going to be interesting to follow in the years ahead. Radhika, I totally appreciate you sharing your expertise today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, James. My pleasure.